Just when you thought the housing market couldn't get any crazier, Trump announces new 50-year mortgages to fix everything. But will it fix everything? Welcome to the Between the Lies podcast, your weekly lesson on how to approach an uncertain world with positivity and balance. I'm Nicky P here with my good friends and money brains, Luke Tatum and Rob Brayton from Perfect Spiral Capital, as they help us navigate the snares and pits in a world of trust me bro economics. Stick around till the end of the video for their free toolkit, and be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy things. Gentlemen, what are your thoughts on mortgages getting longer as life expectancy shrinks?
Well, Nick, I got to tell you, I don't want to have a mortgage that I might pay off in 2075, starting one right now. That seems like maybe not the best deal in the world. Obviously, we'll get into it. But Rob, what's your first pass on this?
Yeah, I when I heard it, I was like, "Wow!" I mean, 40-year mortgages were a thing, and then died right away. So now we got to go to 50. I'm like, I was just like kind of shocked and taken aback. Like, is that really going to solve this problem? I mean, it doesn't solve the fact that stuff costs more. It's just pushing it out longer, and then you're having to pay for it for that much longer on top of it. So
Well, how it was announced. I mean, this is something I think that's worth bringing up, right? This is a Truth Social post or whatever from Trump, right, where he's comparing what we have here, FDR, right? 30-year mortgages. That's good. So if 50-year mortgages must be better, right? If 30 is good, 50 must be better. I mean, why not
bigger number,
140?
better.
Yeah, right. We're just pulling the stock market here, like, oh, well, it's a larger number. So are you dumb? Bigger number is better, right? Like, I, what could be more obvious?
What could be more obvious is you both are letting me down with no reference to Mr. Horace with a no, sir, I don't like it.
Now, this is just it's just a mess. I mean, Rob, you did us the favor of preparing some numbers so we would have a something to talk about, concretely here. But maybe let's just start with the very, very simple. Why is it bad, right? Like, in case someone hasn't really studied amortization or whatever, why is it bad to finance it for 50 years instead of 30?
Well, when you take a look at an amortization table, what happens is, and most people aren't aware of this unless they really look at it. And for anybody who is in the process of buying a home, or you are in the process of refinancing or something, please take a look at the amortization schedule that comes in all that big thick mortgage packet. That stuff is really important to look through. And what you will find, and this is how it's been structured for basically ever, is that mortgages are front loaded on interest, and you will pay the vast majority of interest in the first 10, 20 years, depending upon how long the mortgage is. And in this case, like we were just talking about before we started here, on a 50-year mortgage, you don't hit the 50-50 point, meaning what portion of your payment is principal and what portion is interest, until year 39. So that's a long time. But I think the thing that was the most surprising to me is we were looking at a potential for a 50-year mortgage, is that after 10 years, 93% of all of your payments over that time frame would go to interest. So you'd have a 7% equity stake of the payments you made on it. We used a $400,000 mortgage at 6% interest as a baseline, just as a rough idea. But I mean, that's crazy that, after 10 years, the best you would have for equity is 7% out of all those payments.
So they're really working towards that. You will own nothing and be happy. That's basically turning it into you get a dividend if you stay in a place for 10 years. Like you don't even get the place.
Well, I mean, this fluctuates a little bit, but the average length of time that people are in a home is, really extreme cases, really extreme short range, maybe 5 years, but typically it's around 8 years. Like, I've seen it go to 7, but it's typically around 8 is when, and the National Association of Realtors publishes data on this, like what is the average length of time that people are in a home. And so if you're talking about 8 years or 7 years, you basically do not have equity. I mean, you do. You have a little bit on a 50-year mortgage schedule. But I think the counter argument is, oh, but it's $600 a month cheaper. Or, it's X amount cheaper to finance it for longer. Well, okay, fine. That's true. But what are you doing with that extra money? Do you need to save $600 because we have rampant inflation, because we have all of these other negative factors? Like, you're not winning and pulling a fast one on the bank, by financing for 50 years. Like, you're not getting a leg up and putting yourself in a better position. You're just managing, maybe, to still be able to afford to live and feed your family, right? Which, if you're barely scraping by, but you're shoveling out the majority of your, budget every month to interest to a bank that does not know who you are, care about you in any way, like, that's not a good thing, right?
Yeah, when I think about it too, one of the things that's not really thought about, or a lot of people aren't, even we're talking about, right? We're talking about the product potential with a 50-year mortgage, but why is it happening? And that's the part that's completely being missed and no one chooses to talk about. Well, the reason why we even have to have this conversation is because of our monetary policy and consistent deficits driving the inflation, which increases all of our asset prices. I mean, we see it everywhere. Anything that has value has increased significantly in price. Well, that's a result of that policy. That's a result of the people in charge. And now there's, again, goes back to what we were just talking about a couple of weeks ago. Here, let me break your legs and then I'll offer you a crutch. And it just doesn't work.
It's actually worse than that, Rob. And the reason I'm going to say is because you're looking at this as only from a monetary policy perspective. What are all the other ways between regulation, between the federal government, states, local bureaucracies that are making housing more unaffordable? It's not like houses aren't actually better than they used to be, because they are. But they're also better than they need to be in most cases. In more cases than not, they're bigger than they need to be. Like, when you're having, minimum square footage put on houses so that your tax base doesn't shrink. Like, it's everything is designed to just make these out of price for normal people. So it's you're getting hit from every which.
I fully agree with that, Nick. And anybody who's done any level of digging to dig under the surface on why some of these policies, why some of the stuff gets put into place, it's not done because it just happens by chance. It's for a reason. And we've seen this in, those of us who've kind of looked back and studied in history. When people are self-reliant, they live on their own, and they're free, they can't be ruled. And that's the biggest reason why you see this big shift to make ownership of virtually anything a lot more difficult. Because when people are forced to rely, they're easier to control. And I mean, that's been going on for decades. And just really, it's sad because those of us who truly value freedom, we get kind of ostracized, or we're claimed to be conspiracy theorists or whatever. It's like, history shows us these things. So, but how many people actually go in their spare time and pick up a book and really read to learn to understand? Well, not a lot. So we get what we vote for because we don't take the time to really understand and research what's happening. And it's sad, but that's where, you know, why we kind of operate in the spaces that we do, because there is still opportunity. There's still hope for us if we look and take things from a different angle. And that's obviously a lot of what we're talking about, why we do this stuff in the first place. But
One of the concerns that I see is that as you have all these things conspiring to make houses more affordable or unaffordable, what you end up seeing is people that get access to the cheap government money, like, say, BlackRock or whatever it is, the companies that go in and buy large quantities of housing who don't care if the price goes up. And in most cases, they're better off if the price goes up, because then that makes all the other houses that they own in the neighborhood go up in value. And they're getting cheap free money basically to do this. You don't.
Well, they're leveraging, Nick, right? Because if BlackRock or whoever, again, there's plenty of names to name there, but if they own it on their books, it's an asset on their books. It's not that they want the house as such, right? It's not that they want to go live in the house. It's not even necessarily that they're valuing the rent necessarily. It's just it's an asset on the books. Assets on the books, a $100 billion, $1 trillion company or collection of assets, what does that do for them? It allows them to leverage stuff on their books to, take out loans, finance other acquisitions, do other deals, do these private equity deals that, I'm always prone to start rambling about. It, like the stuff that we don't like, the things that people do not like about that is BlackRock and others own all this stuff, don't take it seriously, don't treat people well with it, and they leverage that to go do something else. Well, guess what? If everybody's leveraging to get into the AI bubble, I'm just going to say, and the AI bubble, I saw this morning that 8% of the valuation of the S&P 500 is NVIDIA.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's really high.
Does that make you feel good? Like, I don't feel good about that.
So another thing I want to point out, because I'm the layman here, and the first thing that comes to mind for me, and you guys, maybe I'm crazy, is that so now we make it easier for people to lower the bar for people to get into a house. Isn't that going to cause a run on the houses that are there and are already short supply is going to be even shorter? And so now prices are going to skyrocket for no other reason than they're not building any but more still, and the availability is still slim.
But because the issue has been, well, I can't afford such and such mortgage payment, so I'm priced out of getting a home, right? So this is a solution to that problem, right? It is, oh, well, if your mortgage payment is only $1,800 and it's not $2,400 a month, could you get into a house then? Well, okay, sure, yeah, I could do that, right? That's the thought process. That's how it's being sold to people. But what you're doing is not, home ownership. I mean, by really almost any standard, it is just paying the bank. It's making sure that the bank's books look good and they've got a nice stream of cash flow.
Now, unless I'm completely right, it's making those same houses worth more for the bank. Because yeah, if it's a $400,000 house now, and you're giving out 50-year mortgages, so now that there's more people going for the same $400,000 house, those houses are going to shoot up in value again. So we're going to be looking at just basically, it's a good way to make houses more expensive so the banks can collect on them and never give you equity, is what it feels like.
Absolutely, yes, and so it is a continued game of propping up. I mean, not to get super hard econ on this, but Ludwig von Mises, right? He's an intervention in the economy must be followed either by a return to freedom or a further intervention in the economy, right? So you prop up one thing, it distorts the economic signals, it creates a lot of issues. Cool. Well, now you got to prop up something else. Now you got to fix this problem. Now you got to fix this problem. Price controls, price ceilings, price floors, all these things. You keep doing it, it's going to get worse. You're going to have more leaks in the system, so to speak, that you have to plug, right? And so this is the latest in a series of, flex tape, slap it right on. Good luck.
It's funny the way that you describe that, because to me that's the way I see the pharmaceutical industry. Is like you take this one pill to fix something, and then you need to take another pill to fix the side effects of what that pill does. When at the beginning, all you probably should have done was fixed your diet in the first freaking place. So it's what's the thing they say? It's like our biggest issue is complicated systems, and the more complicated you make everything, the more likely to collapse it is. And this just feels like another, hey, let's make it even more complicated and intervene even more, almost guaranteeing failure at some point.
I can't even tell you how much we've fixed in our lives here recently in the last few months just by taking methylated B vitamins, right? It's like, maybe nutrition has something to do with how the human body functions. Who would thought, It's just mysterious how that could be true. But, you don't necessarily need a drug for every single thing. Rob, you were going to say something. I cut you off. I want to get your take on something, though. So when you're done, I got another thing for you.
My thought here is like, we're starting to run out of levers to pull. And I think, like, when you think about the grander economy, and we've tried to, in some cases, we've added levers to try to adjust the levers that we already had because we couldn't adjust them enough. Well, now all those levers are starting to be pulled and there isn't much left to go. And that doesn't bode well for any of us, sadly. So it's about starting to think about, well, how do we weather the storm, so to speak, as it might be coming forward for us. So I think that's an important step that we have to start thinking about a little bit too. But I mean, I love the analogy of the flex tape. The 50-year mortgage is like it's like the spray and seal or something like that, right? Like, it's already going bad. Quick, use something faster. It'll make it easier. But yeah, it definitely feels that way.
Right. I mean, you got a rotten subfloor, just why replace it? You could just do, whatever. I don't know. We could go all kinds of places with that.
We were talking about cars the other day, so this is the equivalent of, your Pinto that's like 90% Bondo at this point.
Yep.
Okay, there's a lot of places we could go with that. Rob, so you have some insights into the 2007, 2008 financial crisis, the quote unquote Great Recession. I've always hated that name ever since the first time I heard it. But the situation that we were in, right? You had the mortgage-backed securities, you had eased lending standards, you had all of these situations that sort of created a perfect storm of inflating a housing bubble, right? What we are trying to do with this particular action, the 50-year mortgage, is to try to continue to sell homes. We don't want new home starts to decline. We don't want, total closing on homes to decline. We don't want these stats that people track for the health of the home industry, the real estate industry, to go down, because big number equals good, always has to go up, all these things that we already talked about, right? And so Peter Schiff, think of Peter how you will, doesn't matter. I'm not leaning on his reputation for this post, but he tweeted that, I'm just going to quote it, "To prevent home prices from falling and making homeownership more affordable, Fannie Mae just eliminated its 620 FICO score minimum so it can guarantee riskier mortgages to borrowers with bad credit, enabling them to overpay for expensive homes they can't really afford. No IPO." So how do you feel about that? And is this 2008 all over again? I mean, we just did an episode where we used that kind of a headline, but like, what do you think?
Well, I mean, think about it, right? Now it is the same thing in some respects, but it's different because it's shielded and hidden in a different spot. It's the same animal, different clothing or something, right? Maybe bad analogy, whatever. But now it's just we have the no defies that are out there kind of shielding the banks from this in some respects, but they're not really shielded. It's just that it's off the books, so to speak, compared to some of the other stuff that used to be out there. And when I think about this whole situation as well, like, it doesn't fix the underlying problem. And just because you have a different product doesn't make the problem go away. These 50-year mortgages, if that's what you want to use, the underlying problem is this whole economy got addicted to low interest rates. The interest rates go up. Now people can't afford homes, and now they complain that the interest rates are too high. So they know they can't drop the rates down too much because it'll completely cause a major issue monetarily. They have to have something coming in. They got to have some level of interest. And if they know that they can't pull that lever down any lower, well, the next best thing is to increase the amount of time that you have to pay it, because they're like we were just talking about, they're running out of levers to pull. And when there's no more levers, that doesn't bode well for any of us. I mean, it's just not going to end well.
Just a quick reminder for people: what is while we're complaining about how high interest rates are, what were some of the interest rates paid for houses in the 70s?
Oh yeah, gosh. I mean, we had 18% mortgages and stuff out there. Crazy, crazy high by today's standards, right?
Yeah. If I recall, my parents told me when they bought their first home, it would have been in the early 1980s. I think their interest rate was like 13.5 or 14%. Now, granted, they could buy a house for about $25,000 to $30,000. Like, you could buy a home, and that was 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. Like, it was a nice suburban home, and but that's because interest rates were so high. You had that changed the valuation of assets, but we're in this position where you know we have so many other problems going on that we can't pull some of these levers anymore. And the asset prices have skyrocketed because look how much less our currency is worth today than it was in 1980. I mean, look how much less it is from now to 2000
Or
or
even
even
2020.
2020. So, I mean, these are big changes that have happened in a very short amount of time. And the sad part is it's only going to accelerate, unfortunately, unless something major is done. Like, we have to make major changes in order for that to be reversed.
So I want to ask a question, and maybe this is something that will, after the episode, I'll actually come up with a real number for. But I think that the easy answer is going to be stupid. But so say we're to take that 17% interest rate on a housing house price from 1970 or whatever, and then compare it to the price. This is the price after complete payment. All right. So how much you pay for that house as a percentage of what the house is actually worth on 17% interest back then compared to the 6, 7, 8% interest you're going to pay now on that 50-year loan. Which of those percentage of the house values is actually going to be higher, do you think?
That's interesting. Yeah. I mean, because in the 80s, people are more likely to have something like a 15-year mortgage, right? It would be, I mean, I'm not saying there weren't any other mortgage lengths, but a lot more common back when the dollar was stronger, that kind of thing. So I'd be inclined to think that you're doing a lot better paying 17% on and Rob may be calculating this right now, but
I did. So $40,000 home, 17% interest at 15 years, your total interest is about $71,000.
So another like 120% or something. 100.
Yeah. And that's on a 15-year, right? So then you take we'll just do 6% on a 50-year mortgage at 40,000, just so that we're apples to apples, and your total interest is $86,000. It's more. So even though your rate is better, your time matters, and how that amortization works. It all comes into play, and it seems better, but it really just takes us back to, if we want to take it to the most simplistic form with all of this stuff, it takes me back to, Nelson Nash, right? Volume is what matters when it comes to interest. It's not about rates. It's about what's the volume of interest you have to pay over time. And all that volume of interest that anybody pays, that is money that leaves your system forever and you never get it back. So if you can find ways to recoup some of that interest in some way, shape, or form, you are going to be much better off. You're going to retain a lot more of your money over time, as opposed to it just leaking out all over the place. And this isn't limited to only mortgages. So I want people to understand that. Car loans, credit cards, they all operate in a very similar fashion. I just ran an example the other day on a 5% car loan. Total volume or over 4 years was somewhere near 10.5%. So we have to think differently in order to understand how some of these problems actually exist and work.
Yeah, you got to think about volume of interest, not the rate, right? And people make this mistake all the time. If you listen for it, it's, oh, well, are you dumb? Like 4% is lower than 5. Duh. Like they're giving you some brilliant insight by pointing out that 4 is a smaller number than 5. And it's like, okay, but could we consider this a little bit more, nuanced position of how much interest are you actually going to pay? Not. It's crazy. Now, there has been a meme going around that I believe is false. I have not found any positive evidence of this. But I did see also people worried about 15-year car notes. And, as far as I'm aware, that's fake. Okay, so as of recording, this is on
Well, but
November the 12th.
while you can say that, you're now at 7 years for a car loan.
Right, which is already
was
ridiculous.
5 years was like the standard when I first bought a car, and now they're up to 7. So those are migrating, but that's, granted it's not 50 years, but they didn't used to be near as long as a house anyways.
Well, they're depreciating
shorter.
assets, right? I mean,
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
much faster depreciation than a house in most cases, right? So, yeah, I mean, is your car worth anything by the time you own it? Like anything at all, that's kind of a scary thing too. This came to mind, but I got to quote Frederick Hayek right now, right? The curious task of economics is to demonstrate to men how little they understand about what they imagine that they can design, right? To me, this all boils down to the hubris of government imagining that they can just create economics, right? They can just make economic reality be what they want. We need this number to go this direction. Why don't we just enact this policy to make it so? Well, you can't make houses, be a different thing than they are. You can't make this a better deal. You can just pull from somewhere to push up something else, right? The government doesn't have anything of its own. All it can do is take, right? And so it's just, this always ends badly. However, I know we are getting to the end of our episode. We have to be positive, right? So this goes back to my personal story that I have told on the show before, and I will probably tell again, right? But 2008, we said that we weren't going to get caught flat-footed like this exact kind of situation, right? I didn't see 2008 coming, but we said, my wife and I, hey, we're going to make sure that we've got assets and we're ready to go, because you know how many millionaires were made in 2008, 2009, 2010? Like over the next few years, market recovery, those sorts of things, a whole hell of a lot. I don't have a number, but a lot.
We should specify millionaires not made strictly by inflation.
Right. Because they had liquidity, liquid assets ready to go when things were on sale, right? Abundance mindset versus scarcity mindset. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? My 401k went down in value. Well, if you don't have all your money in a 401k, a tax qualified plan, a locked up place that you can't touch really, then you've got some chips to play with, so to speak, right? And I'm not talking about gambling. I'm talking about cashing in on assets that are on sale. You buy, foreclosed homes. You can do all kinds of cool stuff when you've got money that's ready to go. And so that's what Rob and I do. I mean, that's what Perfect Spiral Capital does. That's our thing. We are all about making sure that you as an individual or as a business owner are capitalized. You have capital ready to go for opportunities. Opportunities will occur in your lifetime. Are you going to be able to act on them? That's the question. That's what we do. So, if that is interesting to you, if you would like to not be caught flat-footed by this, you should talk to us. That's a little bit of a hard sell, but Rob, Nick, you got anything else to add?
Capital attracts opportunities. It's that simple. When you have capital, the opportunities will start to show up. And just because you have capital, not everything is an opportunity. So that's the thing to kind of keep in mind when this stuff happens. Not everything will be an opportunity, but if you know that, when when you spend time to understand a specific area and you understand it really well, that's when you can spot and identify a really good investment. That's when you can put that capital to use and really have it turn around and generate something spectacular for yourself.
What is the key to capital? Saving and investing in things that you know and understand.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right.
I mean, what's Buffett's rule? Buffett's rule, number one, never lose money.
And I want to thank Luke for making that call out to the commenters in the the YouTube that yes, we are abundance mindset people. We are not trying to hold ourselves back. Live your life as you wish, I suppose. So, Luke, why don't you take us out here and tell us where they can get their special gift?
Yeah, absolutely. So, special gift. Thanks so much for joining us on this week's episode of the Between the Lies podcast. If you watch the full episode, it's obvious that you care about the future of money. The money that you're going to care about the most is your money. So if you want to demystify your own financial situation, know what to do, make sure you're capitalized, make sure you're ready to attract opportunities. Again, that is what we do. We have a free toolkit, and it's got 2 entire video courses, one from the Nelson Nash Institute, one from me, and then a copy of my Amazon best-selling book, Between the Lies, from which this podcast gets its name. And you can get all that for free over at perfectspiralcapital.com/podcast. So go check it out, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks so much.